Hello, my name is Catherine Moore, social worker, mom, coffee lover, and founder of Social Workers Rise, where we inspire social workers to connect, expand their knowledge, and change more lives than they ever thought possible. I'm so excited you found my podcast. We will talk everything social work on every level from micro to macro. We will hear the stories of social workers who are doing big things, learn new skills, and most importantly, give you actionable steps to make a difference today. Let's go. Hey, it's your host, Catherine here. This week, we're sitting with Alex Casella, and he helps social workers and mental health professionals organize our hard-earned money so that we can focus on empowering communities. We talk about how he got started even helping social workers in the first place as a financial advisor, and what are his top 3 things that we need to do to start getting on this journey of financial well-being and just really having control of our finances. This episode is for you if have you shied away from looking at your bank account statement? If you were anything like me, where anything about finances or numbers, I'm like, nope, I don't want to look at it. I don't know what it means. And it's kind of intimidating. If this is you, then this is the perfect episode to get you started on your financial wellness journey. And with that, I'm so excited to have Alex on the show. Let's hop into it. This episode is proudly brought to you by the Rise Directory, a national directory of clinical supervisors who are dedicated to helping the next generation of clinical social workers grow in their clinical skills. The link is in the show notes. Check it out and tell every clinical supervisor you know about this directory. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Catherine. How's it going?
Great. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Social Workers Rise podcast. I'm so excited to talk with you about money.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be chatting with you about money. This is great.
Yes, it definitely is. And thank you so much for reaching out. I think you found me on LinkedIn. Is that how we got connected?
Yeah, we connected, I think it was like a couple of months ago back in LinkedIn. We came across one another on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So if you're listening, the power of LinkedIn is real, y'all. I didn't believe it until I started posting on there regularly, but there's definitely some really good connections like Alex on there. So definitely get on there.
Yeah.
But Alex, tell us about what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I get into that, I wanted to, if it's okay, I start with like a really quick quote. I'm kind of into motivational quotes.
Yeah, we love
They've
it.
it's been a big part of like how I've grown as a person. I don't look at them as much anymore, but from time to time I do. And recently I came across one that reads, tough times don't last, tough people do." And this made me think about social workers because I know a lot of social workers and they're strong people, right? They're tough people. They deal with a lot of tough work, a lot of tough situations and tough people sometimes, and they're in a tough line of work. And I want to remind social workers that when it comes to personal finance, while it can be difficult and tough to like look at and think about, talk about, just keep in mind you're a social worker. Like you worked hard to get here, and we'll figure this out together. And I wanted to share that. Um, so yeah, my name is Alex Casella, and I've been working in personal finance for 12 years. And over those 12 years, I've developed a comprehensive outlook on personal finance that focuses on all areas of personal finance. And it's not just siloed in one area. So it's not just like focused on insurance or mortgages or investments or banking. So, what does that mean? That means I have a vision that goes beyond using financial products to help us solve problems, right? And I emphasize that financial success comes from having meaningful conversations with people about how do we integrate and coordinate all of these financial decisions that we have to make in our life. So yeah, I work in financial services. I've been doing financial planning for quite a while.
And that's really interesting. Thank you for that intro, Alex. And I did like the quote and your insight into the world of social work combined with finance, because yeah, we have been through some tough times. And a lot of times as social workers, we tend to shy away from money. I even, I was talking to someone on my Instagram. They said, thinking about my student loans and low pay just makes me want to vomit. And we don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But it's so necessary because it's there.
Hmm.
Just because we have a problem and we avoid it doesn't mean it's going to go away. It's only going to get worse
Right.
the older that you go. And I tried, or I didn't try for years. I did not like look at my finances. I just would look at my bank account and say, "Oh, okay, I can afford this." And and that was my financial management is, "Oh, yeah, I can afford it today." Or I get paid on Friday, so
Right.
I'll buy it then. That was the
Yeah.
extent of my financial knowledge. So,
Hmm.
um, I'm glad to have this conversation and to see so many social workers just really embracing this narrative with open arms and maybe with a vomit bag nearby.
Right. I know. I know. We all started out there one day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So, how did you start even working with social workers?
yeah. So, my involvement with social workers really dates back to about like 2014, 2015. At the time, I was working at a local bank in a similar role. And one of the tellers referred me a friend of his who just started her first job as a social worker. And when she came to me, she was confused, about her finances, and she was confused about like how much of my paycheck should go toward my student loans and my other debts. What should I put towards savings, and what are these employee benefits? Like, how do I set up this retirement account at work? These are some of the questions that I was getting from her. And when you think about somebody who starting a new job, right, as a new employee, HR often just hands in a employee benefits booklet, right? They're like, here you
Yep.
go online, sign up for these benefits by this date. And if you have any questions, let us know. And in some cases, they can help answer questions. But in my experience, there's a lot of confusion about like what employee benefits are. Like, do I need this one? Do I don't need this one? And if you think about like a social worker just out of school, starting a new job, they're not going to know what that stuff means.
Nope.
So we had a great conversation about those benefits. I helped her answer her questions, and a couple weeks after I spent time with her, she started referring me some of her social work colleagues. Right, they came to me with their questions. Um, Fast forward about a year or so from that point, I meet my now wife, whose name is Jessie, and Jessie is a social worker. And when we met, I helped her with make a few changes to her finances. And one story I'll quickly share about Jesse, which this story really demonstrates the impacts of not knowing something about finances. So we were dating for a few months, and Jesse was driving this really nice silver Jeep Grand Cherokee, and a rock hit her windshield and cracks her windshield. She called me and was like, Alex, what should I do? And I was like, just call your insurance company, file an insurance claim. They'll send somebody out to fix your windshield. Well, she calls and to her surprise finds out she opted out of what's known as comprehensive coverage. And comprehensive coverage, for those that don't know, covers things that are considered other than collision on an auto insurance policy. And
Mm.
that's what would repair a window, a broken window. So the long and short of this story is Jesse had to pay for the full price of a new window out of her pocket. And that wasn't cheap. So I share this as one example of not knowing something about a financial product and how that can have impacts on our finances. Fast forward a couple months before the pandemic, some of Jesse's social work buddies are reaching out to me with questions. It's like, hey, I'm leaving a government agency. What should I do with my 401k? I'm going into private practice. Or, hey, I have a home equity loan on my house. What is it? Should I pay it off? Hey, I want to buy a house. Like, how do I do that? So these are some of the questions I'm getting from social workers. And I just kind of realized I had this like aha moment that social workers put a lot of time, right? A tremendous amount of hours into their career and training and helping people and really trying to empower communities. But in all the training that they do, they aren't receiving any financial literacy, right? There's no like financial education. So I saw this as an opportunity to work with a community of people who, you know, I believe I share commonalities with, because my wife and I, we both are the type of people who just like helping people, right? Whether it's
Mhm.
like our friend or neighbor, or what we do professionally, like we just like to help people. So I decided I'm going to work with social workers and mental health professionals. I'm going to help them organize their money. I'm going to help them coordinate financial decisions so that they can be better at empowering their communities that they're working in. Um, and so during the pandemic, I spent a lot of time talking to social workers, and just really trying to understand what they need help with when it comes to finances and how I can better serve them. Um, and I took all that information, I put together the Empower Financial Guide, which is a step by step guide specific to social workers and mental health professionals, really as a financial resource so they can learn more about managing their finances. So, I mean, that pretty much sums up how I got into working with social workers.
Yeah, so many aspects of your story I can relate to. And regarding Jessie with her windshield, that reminds me of the days I was driving around for my job. I was working in hospice, I was working in the field. So many people use their personal vehicles to drive around. And employers are very upfront that they are not covering any sort of anything.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
your personal vehicle is your personal vehicle, and your minimal salary better cover all of the upkeep for that. And it's stressful.
Yeah.
Um, so, and yeah, and comprehensive, like we don't know what that means.
I know. Right.
And it's kind, to be honest, Alex, it's kind of embarrassing because we have master's degrees and here we are trying to ask HR like, what does this mean? And am I one dependent or two based on my
Right.
situation?
Right.
Um
Yeah. Yeah, I
so
don't think that needs to be, and I know probably like the initial reaction would be like, that's embarrassing, but it to some degree speaks to where we're at as a society. Like, we're not learning about these things
yeah.
much in our programs. So that's something I'm trying to change. I'm really trying to help social workers to learn about these things because, yeah, insurances have fancy words, deductibles, comprehensive, collision, all this stuff. What does that mean? So I've enjoyed like breaking that down and making it like very simple to understand, because it is very hard to know what those things are when you're not
Mhm.
learning about them.
And it helps to break it down too, because at first I was thinking, well, if I don't have very much money, why do I need a financial advisor? But just in our 10 minutes of conversation, I can see, oh, you need a financial advisor so that you can spend your money smartly. Is that kind of what I'm getting from, like, that's my understanding. What would be your response to someone who says, I don't have a lot of money, do I need a financial advisor?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I do get that question, often, because I think the financial world itself has kind of created this stigma that you need to have like a large account balance in order to get financial advice, right? And that might be true for some financial institutions, but I don't think that's the case for everybody. So the way I see finance, the way I see this industry is, you don't need to have like a specific dollar amount in your bank account to have these types of conversations with people. Like, having these types of conversations are free. It's, to give advice, to help people put together plans. When you do get to a point when you have established, a account balance and you need help managing that, that's where people like myself and the partners I work with can help, to manage those types of things. But that doesn't mean we can't have conversations about, how do I put together a plan to pay off my debt? How do I put together a plan to, save money, a down payment for a house? Those conversations can exist outside of like the overall account balance. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm kind of wondering because there's so many different ways we could go with this finance conversation. I don't know, must have been 20 questions about money come in when I asked my followers on Instagram about what questions do you have about money. There is all sorts of topics: mortgage, retirement, starting your own business, private practice, LLCs, how to prioritize. So, based on your experience, what have been the three things that social workers need to know or do to be financial or to be successful with their finances?
Yeah, another really good question. And people, social workers who I talk to, mental health professionals, they say like, what's like one or two things I should do or shouldn't be doing? Um, and to your point, there are a lot of good questions out there about, what should I be doing about a mortgage? What should I be doing about a retirement account? Whatever the case. And the reality is we can spend like a lot of time in each topic. And I hope to be able to speak more specifically in each topic at later times. But and the guide I put together, by the way, speaks to all these types of topics as well. That's something that can be downloaded on my website. I can share that later. Um, but
It's
what?
in the show notes. We have
Okay,
his
perfect,
website in the show notes.
perfect. So what I would emphasize is, the answers to most personal finance questions, and I'm going to go into these in more detail as well, but the answers to most personal finance questions start with these two things, right? One is you need to be financially organized, and two is you need to know where your paycheck is going. You need to know where your money is going, right? And those two things can really help start the conversation for all these other, like, topics, right? So the first thing I encourage social workers to do is to get financially organized. Clean up your financial drunk drawers, if you will. It's not an easy thing to do because it takes time and it requires you to, really carve out time from your already jam-packed schedule. But it's important to find the time. We all, have these financial things: insurance policies, employee benefits, bank accounts, student loans. You have to take all that stuff and get it into one place. Really take inventory and lay out everything onto one page, whether that be like a spreadsheet, a Word document, or a journal, some type of composition notebook. There are even phone apps you can use these days to get financially organized, and get everything in front of you, right? Your income sources, your salaries, private practice income, your insurance policy information, um, bank account numbers, balances, loans, interest rates, even things like legal documents or health directives, right? You want to basically anything that's considered a financial product or has something to do with your finances, you want to get that all into a folder. You want to have it all in one place. And you might not know you might not know exactly what everything is, and that's okay. You can also use this as an opportunity to come up with a list of questions and be like, okay, I know I have this thing. I don't know what it is. I want to learn more about it. That's a question you can ask to a financial professional. You can do your own research on. You can reach out to someone like me to ask these questions. Um, and this activity is, similar to like important health records. Some people might put together a list of all their doctors and prescription drugs and keep that on one page, right? You can do the same with your money. Doesn't mean you need to walk around with a card in your wallet, of like all your finances, but it is important to get organized because when you do that, you're not just doing it for like right now. You're doing it to establish a system for yourself, so you can do regular check-ins, right? And you can say like, okay, I'm going to evaluate my progress. I'm going to see what my balances are. I'm going to see what my spending habits look like. I'm going to see if I have enough money in emergency funds. Are my debt balances going down? And even if you're considering like making a change, like I want to go back to school, I want to buy a house, I want to leave my job, go to private practice. When you have your finances organized all in one place, it really can help you to make those decisions. As opposed to like being unorganized, everything's all over the place. It becomes a lot harder to make those decisions at that point. So that would be the first thing. Um,
That makes sense, and it sounds a little scary, but but I think it is a good first step to at least get all the papers in one location, because I can definitely see how if you have everything in front of you, laid out, it can help you get organized around what specifically do you want to ask a financial advisor and what specifically do you need help with? Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah, exactly. So when you need to refer to something, like let's say you're like you want to buy a house, right? And one of the things when you buy a house is when you apply for a mortgage, you have to like give all your financial stuff to underwriters, right? So when you have all that organized in one spot, it makes it much easier to show up to a meeting with a mortgage person when it's all organized, rather than being like, okay, I don't know where that is. I need to go find that. I think I know where that is. When everything's organized in one place, it just makes it so much easier to look at it and work through it. So
That makes sense. And you
yeah,
you probably show up to the meeting much more put together and much more confident. Like, I know I have all my stuff together.
yeah,
Literally, it's all
yeah,
together.
yeah. It's funny because like I'm the guy that like shows up with the money folder at meetings, and then when we go to the doctor, like my wife and I are expecting a baby any day now. Uh, she's like giving me a hard time about like, do you have the pediatrician's number saved in your phone? Do you have the doctor's information saved in your phone? And like, she's like the health person and I'm the money person. So it's kind of funny how she's like perfectly organized on that side of it, and I'm
Yeah,
perfectly organized on the financial side.
that's perfect. And having a baby and getting married, those are two really big financial milestones that we all need to be prepared for. Well, I guess not all of us, but a lot of us want to be prepared for.
Right.
So that's a good point too.
Yeah.
Um, okay. And then, so second, you said is to know where your money is going. I feel like a lot of us are going to say it goes to my student loan and rent.
Hmm.
That's about it.
Yeah, it could very well be the case. Yeah, and it's important, and the idea behind this is like, where's your paycheck going, right? I think the industry itself calls this like budgeting and like all that, and I think budgeting can be like kind of a scary word. So it's better to say like, are you planning out your finances? Do you know where your money's going? And it's really just an activity. It's kind of part two of getting organized. Um, Again, it's not an easy activity. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not easy to find the time, the energy, dealing with those feelings of like, I'm overwhelmed about my money. I don't like looking at it. It's not easy. But it's important that, you try to like keep your emotions in check, not get too alarmed by by the numbers, um, and just go through the activity. Like it's okay if they're not ideal. Like, not everybody's finances were perfect when they first started in their career. It took time to really improve those and make them better. So, that's why these types of activities exist. But I encourage people, and social workers, to be as honest as possible with yourself when you're doing this. Try to look back through like 3 to 4 months worth of your spending history, right? Whether that's like your phone app or your online statements, wherever you're paying your expenses from. Just go through them and start to like group out your spending into different categories. Know how much you're spending on things like groceries or coffee, or like how much am I spending on monthly subscriptions. People who are in private practice, right, this is a good way to like track your business deductions, right? Which ultimately will lower your taxes that you might have to pay. I think most private practice social workers realize they can, deduct business expenses. And when you go to file your taxes, when you have all your deductions in one area, you can just like say, okay, like hand it over to your tax person, or you're filing your own taxes, whatever the case. It's a lot easier when it's nicely organized, as compared to like, having to go through receipts and look back through statements and be like, okay, why did I make this purchase 6 months ago for my business? I don't know. When you go through and categorize everything, it makes it much easier. um, in addition to that, when you're going through your expenses, try to look for like patterns or specific spending habits. Like, what day of the month do I spend the most money on, right? Like, is this the day I'm getting paid, or is it like every Friday or Saturday? What day of the month, or actually, where is like my money going each month, right? Is it like actually going toward my student loans and rent, or is it going toward other things like, shopping or going out to eat, cups of coffee? Those are the types of things you want to look for, because that's what will help you to really kind of get an idea of like, okay, where's my money going? So once you have all your expenses figured out, total them up and subtract those from your total take home pay, right? So take home pay would be the amount you receive after your deductions and the taxes are coming out, right? That's the actual amount of your paycheck or like the direct deposit going into your account. And for the social workers who are in private practice, um, they might have to pay their own taxes. So it's important for people in private practice that you set aside an amount each time you get paid to go toward your taxes. And I think most social workers in private practice are aware of that. But you don't want to be in a situation where you're getting a tax bill and you're surprised and you're like, okay, how am I going to pay for this? Um, but the idea is, if you're working for a company, you're going to get a paycheck. If you're working in private practice, you got to carve out the taxes. And then whatever that amount is, that's after deductions and after taxes, that's what you want to subtract your expenses from, right? And once you subtract your expenses from your income, you'll either have a positive number or you'll have a negative number. A positive number represents positive cash flow, meaning you're spending less than you're making, and that's a good thing. A negative number, of course, is going to represent the negative cash flow, meaning you're operating at a deficit, you're spending more money than you're actually making. And that's an indication that you need to either cut down on spending or take a look and make adjustments to your spending, because the goal is to improve your cash flow to get to positive cash flow. And I can go on and on about this. It's like, we we can learn a lot about somebody's finances just by taking a look at where their paychecks are going, right? Uh, for example, like in medicine, doctors will use lab results, right? And they'll look at those to see, okay, how is somebody's health? Like, can this help us diagnose something going on with a person? Uh, in mental health, you'll use evaluations, you'll use assessments to try and pick up on patterns, right? That someone might present, and you'll use the DSM to help like diagnose what's going on with somebody. But in finance, we look at cash flow to learn about how somebody is doing with their money. Um, and I talk about this all the time. There's two sides to money, right? There's the actual numbers, there's the math involved, but then there's also the emotions and the behaviors that go with those money, right? So, like, how do I feel about debt? How do I feel about a certain product? What are the impacts of my decisions? Are there good consequences, bad consequences of my decisions? Um, you know, and again, I can talk about strategies and ideas all day where like numbers make sense, but individual emotions and behaviors have to work with those strategies. So, I mean, I'm not the type of person to go tell someone like, hey, you can't go get yourself a latte or you can't have a protein shake today. If that's something you enjoy doing and that's where you want to spend your money, then that's where you're going to spend your money. People
Hmm.
have to be willing to decide for themselves and say, hey, this is where I want to spend my money right now. I mean, this like same idea goes toward health and fitness. If I'm trying to lose weight and I'm not tracking my calories in and out, then how am I going to assess like my weight loss?
Right.
Um, you know, I
Yeah.
joke about this. Uh, once you start tracking calories, like I love pizza. Pizza's like my go-to like comfort food. Like,
Me too.
right? Yeah, like I can eat like a whole pizza myself, and it's not good. But you know, so once you start tracking your calories, and you see that pizza takes up like a half a day's worth of your like calorie intake, and you're eating a few slices of pizza a day, it's like, well, maybe that can help you realize like that's why you're not losing weight is because the amount of calories you're taking in. So, it's an extreme example, but you really need to know what's coming in and where it's going. Uh,
Yeah.
it- so
That makes sense. I know
yeah.
for me, it helped to, instead of using the term budgeting, I kind of reframed it as what is my priority right now?
Hmm.
My priority was, paying the essential bills and also getting to a place where I'm not just bound by my essentials, but I do have extra fun money because all of us went to school for so long. I decided I didn't work this hard and go to school for this long to feel broke. So when I did do my, I don't, the know where your money is going, step two. I did do that. And I will warn you, listener, this was the moment where I decided I had to either get a raise or I had to find another job ASAP because I was in the negative. And it wasn't by very much, but every month I was tapping into either my savings or putting more on my credit card. And I realized like, oh shoot, this is not good. Like this needs to change ASAP.
Hmm. Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think in what you're saying, Catherine, it's like the goal is to get to positive cash flow, right? And in some cases, that means going out and finding an additional source of income. Um, but there's also other ways you can do that. Like you can try and find more, like, get more of your money back into your cash flow. So maybe you change like cable or internet providers to save money. You change your auto insurance to get better rates. You sign up for like discounts, reward programs that, really can help you to just get as much money, squeeze as much money as you can out of your cash flow.
Hmm.
So
There's only so much you can do with 50 grand a year, Alex.
I know, I hear you.
um, okay. Before we move on, I wanted to know, do you have, with getting financially organized and knowing where your money's going, are there any apps or tools that you recommend in addition to the the book that you created?
Yeah, so I mean, mint.com is a very good app. It's been around for a while. I used to use it years back, and since like transitioned into some other ways of managing my money. But there's a few other ones out there as well, that really help with budgeting and like how to like see where your money is going. But I've liked mint.com because it does like connect with pretty much everything you have from a financial perspective. So that's one I would recommend.
Yeah, I use mint.com also. And for the record, we are not affiliated or getting money from mint.com. But
Correct.
yeah, I did use them and it was super helpful to do exactly what you said is to get everything on one page. And that's exactly what that does. So,
Correct.
and it updates it automatically for you. So all you do is log in and you can see positive or negative cash flow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great.
Awesome. What is the third thing or, advice that you have for us?
Yeah. So, last, finally, with the third thing, is you really don't want to put off saving for retirement. And, I know the theme here is like we have very little money that we're trying to work with every year. And, I see this. I see this with the social workers that I work with. But the reality is, it ties back to the behaviors, right? Um, and what I mean by that is I know I've seen people in my career who make all kinds of money, right? But they are like all over the place with their money. They have debt that they can't get a handle on. They have nothing in savings, right? And these are people that are making like sizable salaries. And then on the other side of that, I've seen other people, even social workers who they are in the beginning, it's tough, but they've created good behaviors, they've created good habits. And as a result of that, they are established, right? They have money in savings, they have money in retirement account, they have their debt under control. They might have little debt, they might have paid it down. And it's all a result of the behaviors, right? And what that behavior is to really start out slowly, right? If you can start out by putting a very small amount toward your retirement at the beginning of your career and gradually start increasing that over time, right? So that might be like 1% of your salary or a half percent of your salary, or maybe you're just doing like $10 per week, whatever it is that you can put into retirement, start doing it, right? And then a lot of retirement plans, whether that's through like your employer or something you've set up on your own, they through their like online portals, their client portals, will have usually have like an automatic increase feature. So what you can do is you can start at a certain dollar amount, and you can have the portal automatically increase that for you by a certain percentage every like so many months or like every year, and that's one way to really start, prioritizing your retirement account from like a walk before you run standpoint, right? So like if you're going to go out to like run a few miles, you're not going to sprint in the first mile. Like, you're going to end up getting hurt. You're going to get tired. You're probably not going to run those 3 miles, 4 miles, whatever it is you want to do. It takes a little bit of time. You have to walk. You got to warm up your legs, and you have to slowly build the speed into those few miles. The same goes with retirement planning. You just start out small and gradually start to increase a little bit over time. Is one way to really start putting money away toward retirement. And one of the things about retirement accounts is, and studies have been done about this that show us individuals who wait to put into retirement tend to have less money than people who started earlier, right? So people in their like 20s and their 30s who put away smaller amounts compared to people in their 40s and 50s who put away larger amounts, the people who were younger ended up having more money saved in retirement, based on the powers of compounding interest, right? So, compounding, if people aren't familiar with that term, what compounding means is you're getting growth on top of your growth. You're getting interest on interest, right? So really starting out early is a very important thing to do, even if it's a very small amount, because it will make a difference down the road.
Okay, awesome. I love that insight. I do have a question for you because I remember as a new grad, I never learned the answer to this question. So um we have retirement that we need to plan for. We have student loans that are kicking in. We have credit card payments that are coming. And we also want to save for a future event such as a wedding or buying a house or a mortgage. Like, how do we prioritize those areas? Like, where do we spend our money? Is it evenly divided? Is one a higher priority than the other? Can you share any insight on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's like different rules of thumb that like are out there in the industry that could be like applied to these different like line items. But it really comes down to like what is the priority for you? Like if if you want to like buy a house, save a down payment for a house, save money for a wedding, right? Um, what are you giving up to do that, right? Like what is the one thing like you'll like not have, you're going to give up for a period of time, right? For some people it might be like giving up a gym membership, it might be giving up like, you know um, whatever, going out, trying to cut back on spending on certain things, because prioritizing means like, I'm putting this ahead of everything else. So in terms of priority, like debt is super important to pay, right? If we have student loans, like we have to pay those, because if we don't, that's going to impact your ability to get a loan for a house down the road, right? So when you take a look at student loans, like, well, what are all the different repayment options available to me, right? Can I use like an income-based repayment? Will that help me? Can I defer some of my loans if I'm still in school, if I'm still getting my education? What happens if I defer my loans? Can that help me? Credit cards, right? The thing about credit cards is, again, if you don't pay them, it's going to impact our ability to get credit down the road. So, can we take a look at that credit card and find something else to manage it, whether that be like a 0% balance transfer card where we transfer the balance somewhere else at a 0% rate of interest, or can we do like a debt consolidation loan that could maybe lower the interest rate and consolidate the payments, right? That's something that might help. So again, in terms of priority, you have to pay those debts. So I wouldn't give up paying the debts. Um, Outside of that, you need to live, right? You have to pay rent somewhere. So different things you can do when it comes to renting. Well, you can try to live somewhere that's more affordable, whether that's in an area that's not like super, super metro, right, where you're going to be paying top dollar, or maybe you like cohabitat with roommates, right? That's something I did. I lived with a buddy of mine about 10, 15 years ago, and we shared the expenses, right? That made it super affordable for me. Um, so you have to live, you have to eat, you have to go out and have a good time. We can't just like sit around and like watch our dollars, and that's all we do.
Mhm.
So when you go out, look for things that are like more like conscious to our finances. So like I know for me, like I like going on bike rides. I like going to the beach. There's things I like to do that really don't cost me money other than like the gas to get there. Where I have some friends who like going to the casinos. They like going to shows and spending money on tickets to go see sports
Mhm.
games and things like that. So, it's a matter of saying like, well, I want to live, I want to enjoy myself, but how can I do that in a really like a conscious way from a financial perspective? And I think if you kind of combined all that from like what am I going to give up that can help me save? I have to pay my debts, so let me pay my debts in the most efficient way and the most beneficial way toward my cash flow. Um, and when I'm going to go out and enjoy myself, I'm going to do that in a way that's conscious to my budget. I think if you can prioritize those things, that really can make a difference.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. And I know for me personally, the other shift that I actually made was I thought about how I could afford all of the different like areas that I needed to and wanted to. So I wasn't happy with where I was at financially. I was in the red. And I said, but this is the life that I want. Like I wrote down the life that I want and how much that costs. And then I try to get creative and said, how can I afford that life? Like
Hmm.
what other things can I maybe do, or can I ask for a raise or get a different job? Sometimes you even need to leave the industry of social work. I hate to say that, but
Hmm.
I'm for the people, right?
Sure.
If your job is not paying you for the life that you want, like you deserve to be happy. So, um, I would also add in, how can you make your lifestyle feasible or realistic? So,
Yeah. No, it's a good
um,
point. It's a good point.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you for
Um,
that, Alex. I feel like we covered a lot. I mean, I think we could talk all day about these
yeah.
different items, but thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. We're definitely going to have you back on the show another time. Where can people find you, get connected with you, and maybe even schedule a free consultation?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm very active on Instagram and LinkedIn. So my Instagram handle is Casella Personal Finance, and that's Casella Personal Finance. Um, on my LinkedIn, just type in Alex Casella, and underneath you'll see I help social workers and mental health professionals with their hard-earned money. I'm also on Clubhouse, and my website is alexcasella.com. And you could go there to either download the guide that I spoke about, or if you want to schedule a session with me, I do offer complimentary sessions. I never charge fees to have these types of conversations. And yeah, I'm happy to spend like 15-20 minutes with people if they have their own questions that they want to chat about and see if I can help them out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex. You take care.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for your time today.
Bye.
Bye.
Do you want to make your own podcast? Spotify has a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and even earn money all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters. And this is the platform that I use because it makes it so simple to record and distribute your podcast all in one place using your cell phone. What you need to do is download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Social Workers Rise. If you loved it, please open up your iTunes, tap the 5 stars, and leave a short note on why you love listening to the Social Workers Rise podcast. Also, if you want to share it on social media, I absolutely love it. You'll have me fangirling all over you. Take a screenshot and share it and tag me at Social Workers Rise on Instagram and Facebook. Lastly, just want to leave a little bit of legal disclosure here that the information, opinions, and recommendations presented in the Social Workers Rise podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done so at your own risk. This podcast should not be used in place of professional advice, therapy, or clinical supervision. And with that, my friends, I'll talk to you next week.